Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series with me, your host, Gyle. There are just 43 or so hours left on the Galactic War Indiegogo campaign, guys, as of the creation of this video at least. So if you haven't got your donations in and you're planning to, you've got to get a move on. Better do it sooner rather than later, lest you forget. So you don't want to miss out on that opportunity to grab some of those perks. Incidentally, on that campaign's front, I've just noticed a small post on the forums from Zep indicating he's had another large donation to the campaign, but it has gone directly to his PayPal account. So someone has been very mysterious indeed and concealing their identity. We won't press you, whoever it is, if you're not feeling, too extrovert. But please, on behalf of Zep and the rest of the community, accept our thanks. It means a lot and it's much appreciated. So, on to today's game, once again sent in to me by TA for Life, my own personal legend and replay guru. I have to say, guys, I did moan a bit in my last video saying I wasn't getting enough replays, and that's backfired a little bit, so I've got a huge backlog of replays that have been sent in to me now. So if I haven't put up your video yet and you think it's good enough, don't worry, it may still pop up. I haven't had a chance to go through them. I'm going to try and get a whole bunch done today, and they will be uploaded in the coming days. So without further ado, on to today's game. We will head on over to the cold place and see how these guys get on. The cold place, of course, featured in the latest Rise of the Immortals trophy, but in its 2v2 format. So down here, these would be the prospective secondary starting locations. You can see Crazed saying, how did this get in ranked? I don't know how long this has been in the map pool, mainly because I'm too bad at this game to play ranked. But suffice to say, obviously, it's more recently than Crazed has been playing. So, also, if any of you are wondering who Crazed is and don't recognize the name, he is formerly Crazed Chariot. So that is why his global ranking is so high, because he is that good. And we got what is I always believe to be the quintessential SOPCOM matchup. I don't know why, but it always feels like it is the two kind of guys with the biggest beef, the two races with the biggest beef. We've got Crazed going red Cybrin over here, and Voodoo going blue UEF over here. I don't know why it seems that way to me. It just always does. Something about the typical colors, red versus blue, whatever. I don't know. It's weird. But both guys not doing anything too peculiar on their initial opening builds. We've got a difference of just one power generator, I think, and a slight difference in order of things going up. But otherwise, it is one land factory and one air factory for both guys. You can see Voodoo's one going up, queued up over there. In terms of map, the pond is pretty crucial. Whoever gets control of that can cause pretty significant damage to their opponent's base, and also put fire on any surrounding armies that might be lurking around the pond. In terms of mass, it's very spread out. The starting locations only have 3 mass points, and it's pretty evenly spread as well. There's no, as you see, no one place where there's any significant concentration of mass points. So it's a pretty mobile map. Expect a lot of roaming groups walking around different parts of the map trying to pick up mass point kills and secure territory. But Crazed Chariot making quite an early move with his ACU, heading on over at least to the right hand side of the pond, while at the same time Voodoo going for a little wander. You see a huge quantity of factories queued up for Voodoo. One massive line heading up here, and another one we can assume it looks like it's the ACU is going to crack on with building that. Indeed, that looks like what he's going to be doing. And at the same time, a Mantis and an Air Scout and a Bomber out for Crazed. Picks up an Engineer kill, but promptly gets blown out of the sky with an early defending interceptor from Voodoo. So not too much damage going on there. A Naval Factory up and running for Voodoo before Crazed has got his. So Voodoo going for an early control, or an early attempt at control of the pond, but this is going to be very interesting indeed. That has been spotted by Crazed by his ACU, which has marched all the way over the pond and is looking like it's making landfall and going straight to put some damage on Voodoo's base. A very gutsy play indeed. Voodoo is starting some construction on his main base. We can hear as soon as the cannons go on the ACU from Crazed, that building gets stopped, or actually that doesn't at all. He was just going for that engineer, but it looked like that's what he was going to do. Crazed picks up a mass point But there it is indeed. Voodoo is going to return with his ACU. He feels like he needs that extra firepower. Crazed, having put some fire on some mass point, picked up a couple of units kills, or some what look like power gen kills. He's going to balls out, reclaim one of the factories. Very cheeky indeed. It's going to give him a nice little bit of return on mass. But now the reinforcements have turned up. He's going to skedaddle out of there. Couple of T1 PDs going up out of range. A little bit of a creep was destined, but that's been cancelled now, being as he assumes Crazed is going to head back into the water. That looks like that's what he's going to do. Indeed, there he goes. Voodoo is going to pursue with his own ACU. We've got a naval factory up and running now for Voodoo. He's working on its first T1 sub, and that could be a little bit of a problem for Crazed. It's going to put some extra damage on him. But he's probably trying to reclaim the factory. Look at the speed of that is going down. Voodoo trying to reduce that as best he can, but he manages to get the sub out, and he's going to switch to construction of a T1 torpedo launcher, and as coupled with that sub, that's going to be able to put some extra damage on Crazed. That is definitely the idea at the moment, try and whittle down his ACU as much as possible. But all of the concentration of work on that side of the map has allowed Crazed to get 2 naval factories up and running while he's been unmolested. So very nicely done indeed. But a lovely little run by happening up here from the Mantis and Medusas. All the Medusas have gone pop except for the one up here. But there's still 3 Mantis up and running. We've got some bombers on the scene now from Voodoo helping thin out those units. Another Medusa down up here. Finally the strikers turn up, and that will be the end of that little push. Down here though at the bottom we've got another little push happening from Crazed. Should be able to pick up an engineer maybe and a couple of mass points. However, we'll need to be wary on this side because Voodoo has got a T1 PD up and running. That is in place. Still on this side of the map we've got some combat going on, but the tables have turned. That sub is definitely going to lose that battle from the sub of Crazed. We've got a Trident up and running as well, the frigate for the Cyberans, and that's going to be able to provide them some anti-air coverage and a lot of air units out as well. So a little bit of a feeling that Crazed is being the more aggressive at the moment. He's got naval control of the pond, he's got air control. However, we've got a double tech upgrade from Voodoo. That might be why he has yielded so much map control. He hasn't had the units to put out because he's been upgrading simultaneously air. You can see the T2 torpedo bombers up and running for Voodoo, and pillars out on the field for land that are making some advances on the top. So very interesting indeed, and that tech upgrade should hold Voodoo in good stead. And being the spread out nature of this, I don't think he's lost too much time and energy. And Crazed taking a lot of fire from those torpedo bombers. Definitely what he's been focusing on, but he's not going to be able to make any more headway with that. Crazed promptly gets his ACU out of the water and onto the safety of land. Voodoo trying to get a little bit of work done with this run by at the top, but the pillars being slowed down with some bumps from the friendly passing Mantis, and that's not going to get too much done. And just look at those Medusa. They don't do the most damage, and they don't have the most AoE of the T1 artillery, but that EMP, incredibly irritating, just doing enough to slow the pillars up, so he's not going to get away. The Mantis is going to finish the job. Got some Janus out as well, but they're not in any fantastic number, and the huge quantity of Tridents that are out now for Crazed are going to be able to deal with that without any real problems. Down here, Crazed making some headway with a little bit of a push from that small band, and Medusa's helped to take out that forward T1 PD, so a few mass points going down now. He's lost 2 and a whole bunch of engineers and tanks, and gonna push on as well down to the bottom right, so we're gonna lose probably another mass point unless these bombers can take care of it. However, up at the top, Voodoo still gaining ground, and Crazed forced to retreat with all his forces to make sure that these guys don't make any headway on this run by and get into the back of Crazed base. Of course, the problem is this avenue attack is now open to Voodoo. Crazed does have a couple of T1 PDs up and running, which will afford him some defense. It's all a question of how that plays out, though, on the micro. But look at the pond. Total domination for Crazed. That doesn't look like that's in any danger of being taken away from him as well. And he's also got a cruiser out. And while that is pretty significant from the land perspective, that's also going to help nullify any advantage that Voodoo would get from the air in terms of tech. So useful as they are, the cruisers, at anti-air. But look at the range on that, and that's won't be as good as, say, the UEF or Seraphim cruisers at bombarding Voodoo's base if he moves it over to the far side of the pond, but it's giving him just enough range to put fire on those tanks, and those skyboxes and pillars getting absolutely rained down on. But just manages to save that skybox, which is going to help protect him from any air threats. But still, in terms of numbers, Crazed doing nicely in the air, even though he's still on T1. But he's got nothing down here in terms of land. That little force that got taken out down here was the last of. He's got a couple of Mantis over here, but that's about it. So he's actually having some trouble now from Voodoo, who's got some strikers on this side of the map, come from both directions and met up. So it's going to be the end of all these mass points. And suddenly, in terms of map control, this game's turned on its head once again, coupled with the spam from these pillars and riptides. So very nice work from Voodoo indeed to turn this around, and now it's looking very much like Crazed is the one under pressure. Not necessarily from the pond, he's got control of that, but let's take a look at where they are on eco. Crazed is sitting on 24 mass, and Voodoo is way up on 42. So in terms of map control on eco, Voodoo definitely winning this one for the moment. That's a hefty force of pillars and riptides microing around to try and avoid the fire from the cruiser. Actually, no, sorry, it is the Salem destroyer that has made landfall because Cybran like to cheat and let their naval units go on land. But it's going to do some pretty significant damage in terms of mass points and power production. And indeed, there's even more strikers. So there's just a pretty significant hole here in Crazed defenses, and just hasn't been able to plug it. And still, more units for Voodoo streaming in. And if he doesn't manage to get a handle on this soon, he might suffer critical damage on his base, and that could be the end of it. But another Salem destroyer out. I'd like to see Crazed kind of get them up here and stem the tide of this coming into the top of his base. But look at the change of fortunes. He's lost all of the mass points down here. So things looking very nice for Voodoo. And Voodoo now going to make a little bit of an attempt on the water with his riptides. One of the benefits of going UEF is they get these floating tanks, and that is going to start putting a lot of pressure on these tridents, the frigates, and also that cruiser as well. It would help if he had some destroyers, but they're currently deployed on land defending his base. So Crazed under a lot of pressure from all sides. It's extraordinary to see how this game has turned around, and the mass and energy that Crazed initially ploughed into the early T2 on this factory hasn't given him the control that he needs. The T2 air and land for Voodoo has proved at this point at least a lot more advantageous. Janus coming in now from Voodoo, wanting to deal with that T2 factory, and a lot of stingers as well that were hiding on the right hand side of the map are now being deployed. Feels like the time is right. And air control firmly in the hands of Voodoo now. The early interceptor advantage that Crazed had has dissipated due to him having to redeploy his forces, or his mass and energy, his economy, into land. You can see he's now got T2 up and running of his own on the ground. He's producing some Wagners. That is going to alleviate some of the pressure, but still he's been unable to plug this hole at the top of the map. So very interesting game. But for now, Crazed managing to hold on. We'll take another look at the economies just to see how it's shaping up. 51 mass now, Voodoo, as opposed to 18 mass for Crazed. So in terms of eco, Voodoo is absolutely storming away with it for the moment. I'll have to see if the tech upgrade that Crazed has managed to get out for his land units, see if that will make any difference. Finally, he's had a little bit of a reprieve at the top here. He needs to get these units up here and try to block off this invading force that's just been streaming in over the course of this game. He needs to get a plug in that gap, and then he can grab these mass points back and hopefully start getting maybe some more down here. He has managed to secure a little bit of territory for the moment. All of the units coming in now from Voodoo are T1, Whereas we've got a few Wagners out for Crazed, so he should be able to retain control, that maybe even push back a little bit. So very back and forth game indeed. And Voodoo's kind of single file stream needs to stop at this point because he's just not winning these battles, and this blob of units for Crazed, being as it's on the doorstep of his base, is only increasing. Voodoo has managed to get a few units past on the run by, wants to move them south to take out these mass points because they will probably get destroyed unless Crazed doesn't know they're there. Let's take a look at the radar coverage. Indeed, he hasn't got any radar coverage. It's been that hectic that he hasn't been able to get it up running, or it's been Janus. I don't know. We'll have to see, but currently he's completely unaware that these have got by, so he could lose a couple of mass points. Down here we've got a lot of air units for Voodoo that are in danger of getting absolutely annihilated, especially with this Siren coming into the mix, the cruiser for the Cybran. And Voodoo recognizes the threat, having lost the Stingers, and promptly gets them out of there. He's going to park them over here at the right hand side of the map. A little bit of a lull in action now. For the moment, we can see Crazed, assuming that there's probably some units still behind him, doesn't necessarily know until he sees them, and there they are. He's going to redirect some units, so very wisely just making a little bit of a sweep of the area. There's a Riptide sitting here with virtually no health, but that could do some damage if Voodoo can put it to some good use. And now, finally, the pond control is paying off for Crazed. He's got a whole fleet down here putting some damage on the base, and Voodoo throwing up a slightly premature GG, I think. He's concerned. He doesn't actually have an answer for the moment for dealing with this fleet. I think he was very concerned about that getting up and running near the beginning, and that's why he was being so aggressive, but he very nearly took the fight to such a point where Crazed wasn't going to be able to come back. He was looking absolutely down and out on eco, but that looks to have stabilized now as he's back up to the 25-30 mass mark. Voodoo is down to the 40 odd mass, so he's still ahead, but he's not going to be able to get any naval control back from Crazed at this point because the size of this pond is so small. And Voodoo balls out, marching in with his commander, going to try and thin out the forces as much as possible before his own reinforcing units get in there. There's quite a few units for Voodoo, but I don't think he's got as many as Crazed does for the moment. It's all going to be about positioning. Seems to be relatively even numbers of T2 units as well, so this fight could go either way. But of course Voodoo does have his commander in the mix, and as long as he's got some power storage up and running, he should be able to make some pretty good advances with the overcharge. Indeed, there it goes, taking out multiple units. Needs to focus on those T2 ones. They are the ones causing the most damage. But for the moment, Crazed looking like he's slightly ahead, or at least he's thinned out most of it. But with Voodoo, his comm there, might be able to turn the tide and push out. Of course, the problem is he's X amount closer to Crazed's base than his own, so reinforcing units are going to be on the field and in the mix much quicker for Crazed. And all the time this is going on, of course, the navy of Crazed just sitting here bombarding the fringes of Voodoo's base. I'd like to see him get these Salems out into the mix and approaching the base, so he hasn't really got anything to deal with. That would cause untold amounts of issues. And Voodoo very low on hit points indeed. Too many T2 units on the mix for Crazed, and Voodoo goes down. Finally gets picked off. He'd already thrown up the GG, so that was a last-ditch effort to try and make something happen. But very nice back and forth game there from those two. Indeed, you can see how effective the Navy was in the end. That forced Voodoo to go in, despite the fact that he actually, for a large portion of that, had better map control and more eco. He didn't see a way back from losing the pond. So you can see just how important the pond is on this map, on the Cold Place. I hope you guys enjoyed that. There are going to be a lot more casts coming soon. I'm probably going to work on a bunch today. If you haven't already done so, incidentally, guys, I do have a Facebook page up and running. It will be in the description below this video and all my videos. So do check it out. If you use Facebook, it will be a good chance for you to follow, a good place for you to see all of the content that's going to be coming out. I will be planning on doing some other stuff soon as well, not just Forged Alliance stuff, because I'm trying to grow the channel, and hopefully that will entice more people or other gamers that don't initially play FAF to come and do so. And it's going to help, of course, with this whole Galactic War thing. As that gets going, it'll be a massive selling point for the game. In the meantime, guys, stay safe. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. For now, this is Gyle signing out.